Well, I have to say that I don't want to be too manipulative to start off, so I just want to make a confession that as long as I'm in the St. Louis area, I'm a Cub fan, so I just want you, I want you to be aware of that. You know, actually, a quick story, and Chris, I just want you to know that I get 5 minutes extra after you just did what you did. You took all my time. But anyway, my dad was a longtime usher at Wrigley Field, and in fact, he grew up thinking that he should be getting a paycheck from some major league team, and so when he retired, he went to work for the Cubs as an usher. And over the course of time, the Cubs were very, very good to him, but he became the usher right behind home plate at Wrigley Field. And so we would come down here for times when the Cubs were playing here, and then he would, you know, we got treated really well, I got to tell you, in St. Louis. Even though we were wearing blue, we got treated really well. But isn't it a great rivalry between the Cubs and the Cardinals? You know, the East Coast, ESPN being in Connecticut really ruins it. All they do is promote the Red Sox and the Yankees. They don't understand. They really don't understand the rivalry between the Cubs and the Cardinals. They just don't get it. And I know maybe some of you have come up to Wrigley for series with the Cardinals and the Cubs, and you know, sometimes it gets heated, but it is a lot of fun. So I just want to make sure that you don't feel like, you know, when I say thank you to Missouri for what you did for Wisconsin, that I'm manipulating you. Just I want to be upfront with you and let you know that when you're looking at me, you're looking at a Cub fan. I know this year's tough on us, but you know, we're coming back. We're coming back. But, you know, I do want to say thank you, because what happened for us this past spring was something that, you know, we really didn't want to have to go through. And we are weary in Wisconsin. We have been in 2+ years of non-stop campaigning. You know, in November of 2010, we had a great day on Election Day. We elected a Republican governor. We elected a conservative senator, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson. And by the way, a little plug, if you don't know him, get to know him. He is a great senator. He's done a great job in the U.S. Senate. And we took over the state legislature. We elected a couple extra people into the House. We really had a great day on Election Day in 2010, and then it was like on February 17th, 2011, it was like the world broke loose again. And on the 17th, actually it was the 18th, the next day, I got a phone call as part of discussions, and we started talking and decided we were going to hold a recall of a state senator that decided he didn't want to represent us anymore in Kenosha, and he was going to go to the clock tower in Rockford, Illinois, and decided to hold court over there instead of being in the state senate. And that just triggered. So I filed paper that day, and we started a recall. So we've been in this mode ever since, and you know, the eyes of the nation have been on Wisconsin. We understand that, and we again appreciate so much what you've done from Missouri in helping us. It's just been tremendous. So thank you, we appreciate it. You know, one of the things that I just want to ask you about, I want to do a little quiz here, actually. I want to ask you about Missouri politics, if that's okay, if I can be so presumptive as to ask you some questions about Missouri. Number one question. Does anyone have any idea as to how many people, total number of people that voted in the 2008 presidential election in the state of Missouri? Actually, and I don't expect you to really know these answers, but I'm going to ask the questions anyway and put you on the spot. But it's 2.87 million people voted in the 2008 presidential election. We'll get to that. We'll get to the percentage. Do you know what the winning percentage for John McCain was in 2008? Let's talk percentage first. We'll talk about the number of votes. What was the winning percentage for John McCain in 2008? It was 0.14. It's all he won by. 0.14% in 2008. Votes. How many votes was that? What was the margin of victory?
3,904.
Well, when I put it in my calculator, it came to 3,903, but you know what? I could have had a dyslexic finger somewhere along the line, but that's right. So that's all it was. How many precincts are in the state of Missouri? In between, it's between 34 and 3,500. So 3,903 vote margin translates, of course, into just over 1 vote per precinct. Was the margin of victory for John McCain in 2008. That's pretty remarkable, isn't it? Okay, of that, let's ask this last question. What percentage of eligible voters voted in the 2008 presidential election in Missouri? That's not registered voters. We're talking about eligible voters, the whole pool of people that could potentially vote. Yeah, well, we have that problem in Wisconsin as well with dead people voting. It's amazing the powers that there are, and yeah. I think maybe the Chicago influence has gotten both of us there. But what's the percentage of eligible voters who voted in the 2008 election? How much? 35? 25? No, it's higher than that. And typical of presidential elections, that usually is the peak for eligible voters voting. And in Missouri's case, it was 69%. 69% of the eligible voters voted in the 2008 presidential election. Yeah.
We have the figures on the previous election, and I don't know if you said they voted anyone, but there was no one to vote for in 2008.
Yeah, and that could be, and it does go up. But if you look at the numbers, honestly, they do stay somewhat constant across the board. And by the way, Wisconsin, extremely similar to Missouri. The numbers slightly higher as to who voted. Very, very similar across the board in the state of Wisconsin to the numbers for Missouri. But think about this. 69% of the eligible voters voted. That meant that 31% of the eligible voters didn't vote. That's a lot of people. Now, how many people does that translate to? Think about that. That actually translates to over 1 million people. Almost 1.2 million people in the state of Missouri didn't vote. Now, what could happen in your election coming up in November if you could actually get some of those 31% to vote who would tend to vote our direction? We just heard that, there's up to 30% of the people in the church that you attend that aren't registered to even vote yet. They're not voting. And that's a block of people that will tend to vote in a conservative direction. I know the church I attend, the same thing is true. It's true. And so we're leaving votes on the table. And so many of us were sitting around, thinking, okay, we had nothing better to do, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then wild, crazy ideas hit. And we thought of Manhattan Project. Now, the reason we call it the Manhattan Project is because this has the potential to blow elections sky high. When it comes to politics, the most important day in politics is election day. It really is. It's more important than anything else we do in being involved in politics. Because everything comes down, in our system, everything comes down to who we elect and put in office. There is no substitute for that. Municipal elections, don't get me going, but the people, as I've been going around the last couple of days, I can get really wound up talking about local politics and being involved in local elections because I firmly believe in it. But that's really, really important. We have a day coming up in November 6th where everything we do revolves around that day. Everything, and I can tell you this, for our group in Kenosha, we gear everything we do to electing the people we want to have elected into office and then holding them accountable when they're in office. That has become the whole reason for our existence. And so we go to meetings, we do all kinds of stuff after we elect them, but we also work real hard to get the people we want elected. Because electoral politics is the whole game. Because once we get them in office and we hold them accountable, we can expect them to do the things we need them to do in order to bring our country back to where it needs to be. And so we need a reliable measure. We need something we can actually know that we're having a real effect on elections. And so we came up with this. I'm just going to highlight the top election. In 2011, we had a Supreme Court election statewide, and it was the most expensive statewide Supreme Court election in U.S. history in Wisconsin. It was at the height of the controversy. we at times, I was in our capital in Madison, and there were sometimes 10,000 people marching around the Capitol. Ho, 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 Walker's got to go, and all kinds of different things, and some of them a whole lot more vulgar than that as well. It was really despicable, some of the things they were saying. And, you know, sometimes I was like by myself walking in this crowd and thinking, my goodness, I hope they don't recognize me. Because, it was amazing to see, and we had this whole big thing going on in the state of Wisconsin during this time. And so this Supreme Court race became huge. And David Prosser, the conservative candidate for the Supreme Court, won the election. And he won it by just over 7,000 votes. You may have heard the story. A very good friend of mine, the county clerk in Waukesha County in Wisconsin, made a mistake. And for whatever reason, she was doing a spreadsheet thing. She forgot to pull in or didn't pull in. We're not even sure what happened. But the results for the city of Brookfield, Wisconsin, weren't pulled into her spreadsheet. She gave those results to the AP. They went with it. And David Prosser lost the election by 300 votes as of election night. The next morning when Kathy went to her office, she found the mistake and rectified it, had a press conference the next day. David Prosser ended up winning because of those Brookfield results by 7,000 votes. Triggered a statewide recount, spent $4 million on the recount, and actually his margin widened as a result of the recount, not by much. But it was an amazing thing, quite a process to go through. Now, look at the turnout as we have it up here on the screen for this election. April 5th, 2011, a 33% turnout statewide. That's appalling in a sense. I mean, never so much money spent on a campaign. Never so many TV and radio commercials and all kinds of stuff going into these campaigns. And 33% of the people showed up to vote. That was it. So we left a lot of votes on the table in that election. And it was actually after this time that we started thinking, okay, what can we do? So we started analyzing it. We realized that face-to-face contact with individuals is way better than using radio or TV. And if we could impact the voting totals by face-to-face contact, that would be the best thing to do. We also realized that we wanted something that required a low threshold of effort in order to do. So we had, you can see the list. We went through these things to determine, start gearing our minds as to what could happen. Cost was, of course, a key component as well in all of this. And so for Wisconsin, what we came up with was simply this little thing. That we could go around the state and we could motivate activists around the state of Wisconsin to simply find two people who are either zero or low propensity voters. That is, they don't vote at all, they're not registered. Again, as we've heard, and the campaigns here are great. So they don't vote, they're not registered, or they're low propensity, they don't vote very often. And we find each activist finds two people and shepherds them through the whole voting process. This has the potential to have profound impact in voting, will directly lead, and in fact already has for us, directly leads to increased voter turnout, not by huge margins, but in a lot of cases by enough. In fact, our goal for this year for Wisconsin is to increase voter turnout by about 1.5%, just through this process. And so that means for us a little over 40,000 votes in the state of Wisconsin through this process. It's a real easy thing to do because you have friends, you have relatives, you have coworkers, people you're going to church with, acquaintances, people you already know who aren't in the process. You know two people that would tend to vote our direction who are not doing it right now. And all you got to do is work with them. Again, CWA's got a script. I think that's great. For 2 counties is actually giving you the voter rolls, which is great. And by the way, if you do have pen and paper, here is another source if you're not living within St. Louis or St. Charles counties. Another source is championthevote.com, and you can put in someone's name and their address, and that website will tell you whether they are registered or not. And so you can look them up and find that out. And so take your church directory. You can do all kinds of things with that and find out who's registered or not. And if they're not registered, all you have to do is go to the Secretary of State's website in the state of Missouri. Real easy to do. Print out the registration form, fill it out for the person, take it to them, let them fill in their information to verify that that's who they are, the driver's license information normally, sign it, take it back from them, and turn it in or mail it in to the county clerk. Now you know they're registered. Because that last step is the most important part of it, actually. You don't leave it to them to mail in. You take it back from them and mail it in for them or deliver it to the clerk's office. Now, if it so happens that they have a conflict on Election Day on November 6th and they can't vote, you also, at the same time, you're asking them to fill out the registration form if they're not registered. You ask them to fill out the absentee ballot form. Actually, you have it pre-filled out for them, too. All they have to do in that case is sign it, take it back, deliver it to the clerk. Now they've both registered and requested an absentee ballot all at the same time. It's a real simple process. Very simple. If they're registered, they're not, in Missouri, you have to have a reason to vote absentee. In Wisconsin, we don't. Wisconsin, our early voting process is the absentee ballot. And we have an extended early voting season for elections in Wisconsin. But you can do this here. If a person's already registered and you know they're a low or zero propensity voter, then you work with them. And by the way, we are working on tools to provide you with that information in order to let you know. We're going to be disseminating that through the state of Missouri to let people know. And I can almost guarantee, in fact, I know because I've been through this. It'll be surprising to see the people that are on the list that are low or zero already registered and they don't vote. Or they don't vote very often. And so we can provide you with some of that information as well. So these are tools that we have in order to increase the voting totals and make a big difference. By the way, in the Senate race, do you know what the most recent national polling organization found the difference was in your U.S. Senate race as of right now? What the polling is showing? A 1% difference. McCaskill up 1% over Aiken, which tells you right there. This whole thing is absolutely, eminently doable. And so this is something that, this is just one tool among many that can be used in order to make sure that the candidate that you prefer is able to cross the finish line ahead of their competitor. And by the way, what we found as we do this, the greatest impact of the Manhattan Project is not on the statewide election, although it can have certainly profound impact there. It's even better than that. It has better impact on your legislative races, actually. And even when you have municipal elections, even there it has even greater impact yet. But because we're multiplying our voting efforts and we're reaching out to new people, again, this whole process just has tremendous impact and can have tremendous effect in the voting. And again, everything boils down to what happens on Election Day. And so what this really simply is, it really allows for voter managers, which is you as an activist. And what are you doing? You're managing two people, shepherding them through the process. That's all it is. And making sure that, honestly, in a very, very nice way, they can't wiggle out of it. And that's really what it is, to make sure they vote. Now, can we guarantee 100% that they're going to vote our direction? No, we're not trying to look over their shoulder and in that way. We respect the sanctity of the vote too much to do that. But, again, you choose people you know that will tend to vote our direction. And again, this can have profound impact. And what's really neat about this is that it really truly does put political power in the hands of grassroots. It really does. Because we're expanding what we're able to do and the impact we're able to have on electoral politics. And I find this to be really exciting. And you know what? I got to tell you, those 2 days we've been traveling around Missouri, I didn't really have too many, preconceived ideas. I didn't know what to expect, but my goodness, you guys are great. I feel like I'm talking to a bunch of people from Wisconsin, so that's helpful because you know what? We're the same. Now, I forgive you for being Cardinal fans, but apart from that, You know, it really is. It's fantastic. You know, we speak the same language. We have the same heart. We have the same passion for what we're trying to do for our country. And honestly, I can tell you this, that what you all are doing and the commitment that I see from people around the state, it inspires me. I've been telling people today, although I kind of feel tired tonight right now, this is our 4th meeting. You know, I think I'm getting back into town on Thursday, and I'm motivated to work even harder than I've worked before because of what I'm feeling and catching from here in Missouri. So thank you so much again for what you've done already for Wisconsin. Thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for inspiring me personally. And I hope we can all work together to see great results on November 6th.